Hey everybody, this is Captain Frugal reporting for duty, giving you my weekly comic book review. So sit back and enjoy.
Captain Frugal, telling the truth, strumming chords, uncovering groove, comic panels, game reviews, rocking riffs and six-string blues. What's the verdict is it rad? Did it crash? Is it bad?
Alright everybody, for those of you that know the drill, I go over a bunch of comic books for the week that I chose to read. Now I didn't have time to read everything, so if I missed something you think I should have read, let me know in the comments below. Also, you may disagree with me on some of my choices. If that's the case, that's alright. Let me know below. Let's just try to keep it civil. My goal is to bring back the old schoolyard days, where we would be in discussing what hero could beat who or what comic book was good and not. And I come armed with my trusty notes, so you'll hear the paper rattle because I do it a little bit old school. I do my grading on a scale of 0 through 10, 7 being average as a 70%. So I'm using schoolyard grading. But that's not all. I also use the League of Comics Geeks to give you other people's views as well as a brief overview of the comic book as well. So let's jump right in. Hello everybody, welcome to the weekly comic book review, where we have a virtual conversation like we were in the comic shop just talking with other friends. And speaking of that, please leave your views like you're chatting with us in the chat section down below. We'd love to have your views, but remember, let's try to keep it civil. Let's keep it like we're, just people that ran into each other at the comic shop. And also, if you don't mind, like, subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. So let's start off by talking about Batman and Robin issue number 24 with 201 ratings with a 4.0 score on League of Comics Geeks. And I gave the book 7.5. Not so bad. By the way, if you hear any noise, that's the air conditioner. It's too hot not to have it running. The writers, Philip Kennedy Johnson, artist Carmen D. Giamoncino and Miguel Mendoza, and Juniba. I've said this 1,000 times. I butcher names. It's not intentional. Remember, you must die. Long ago, a young Bruce Wayne first encountered the mysterious Memento in the winding streets of London and narrowly escaped with his life, but also with terrifying questions he never managed to answer. Yeah, this story, this whole storyline sort of goes into Bruce's past as he was going under a different name to learn some detective skills, and this is something that spawned from that. With that said, if you're not a fan of people when they write and sort of revise history, in this case I don't think he really changed history, but they go back and use a piece of history and make a story, you might not like this, but if you enjoy those kind of stories, you probably would. So can Batman stop this Memento character? I think it's got an interesting cover here as well. Batman shows his detective skills in this particular storyline and this issue too as well, and I like that. This is the end of that story arc though, so I wouldn't recommend getting this issue unless you've already been reading it or you want to pick up all those issues. It does have a decent ending as well, and I do like how it has the story in the background of Damian finding his way, really. But you know what? Let's not just hear my views. Let's look at a couple other people's. This person gave it a 2.5 stars. It said, as much as the writer's era for Damian had some really great moments, I'm starting to hate this writer for Damian. There's like nothing that shows that Damian is from Talia, like him wanting to be a doctor. And it's only because of these two people from the Wayne side that he barely knows. I mean, his grandpa's dead. And not even a little inspiration that the entire Al Ghul bloodline has doctorate degrees. I feel like Damian's character isn't even there. They're just kind of using Damian to make how the viewers see Robin, which doesn't go with Damian's character. I mean, there's a whole book for this. But even aside from the Robin thing, I'm not really seeing Damian's character in his writing. Now, it goes on, but I'm only going to read that section of it. Let's look at another review that runs counter to that. And here's one that gave this book a 5-star review. Satisfying ending to the arc. Maybe this time Damian going through a really intense case that provokes equally intense self-reflection that he ends up expressing through really stirring arc-ending art will actually stick. Also, Damian swooping in while thinking to be Robin is to be in flight was pretty choice. Is that a new way of saying things? Cool, pretty choice. So there we have one that's very high, one that was not so high. Where do you sit on this whole Damian, Batman and Robin issue? I'd like to know. As I said, I'm probably sort of in the middle. I give it a 7.5. 7 would be an average score, so I give it slightly above average. Nothing spectacular then, if you will, but also not bad. Now, with that said, let's talk about another book, Green Lantern Corps. Yeah, this book has 167 ratings with a 3.6 score, mostly positive from League of Comics Geeks, and I gave it, you ready, another 7.5. The writers Jeremy Adams and Morgan Hampton, pencilers Fernando Parzan. And with the Sorrow Lantern ignited, all the emotion in the universe has been sucked away by the Starbreaker Corps. Yeah, so we have all these GLs without any emotions. Yeah, so this is an interesting development. And that's one of the things I liked about this issue there is that we talk about that, maybe it's better not to have emotions is what some think, and some think, no, we have to have emotions. I like that part of it. Guy in this, of course, is a punching bag. This poor guy always is a punching bag for the DC universe. Decent art in this issue, and I dug the story. I'm not usually much of a fan of, let's have an issue talking about feelings a whole bunch. Those are usually boring issues, but it makes sense with this story. This issue is it's about feeling, and it's okay because, once again, it's essential to the story. And this team continues to run from one problem to another. Overall, if you're a Green Lantern fan, I think this is one that you would enjoy. I really do. But not everybody agrees with me. So let's talk about this 2-star review here. It says Adam should know by now that he can't keep leaning on nostalgia bait and the last page cliffhangers as the only hooks in his books. Those moments may spark interest, but they're propping up issues where interactions feel shallow and without consequence. Characters drift through scenes with no sense of internal direction, as if they're just being shuffled from one setup to the next. Now, I will say they are running from one problem to the next. I'll give them that. I know this is kind of the point of this issue. Yes, it is. I think, it might not be a fair reason to give it such a hard grade. If someone had spoiled the ending for me, I wouldn't have lost much by skipping this issue entirely. But that's the thing. I don't read stuff just for the plot. I want to enjoy the characters, their interactions, and what actually makes them who they are to see in their words and actions. Now, I'm going to disagree here with this because we've seen that. We've seen them discussing that, hey, maybe not having feelings is going to be helpful to us. And so we had that kind of discussion. I think that was a good back and forth. So I don't know if I agree with that. Let's find somebody that gives this book a higher score, because it really is quite mixed in the League of Comics Geeks here. So this person gave it 4.5. As someone who has been reading the series and the main title since the first issue, along with all of War Journal, seeing so many threads that have been seeded come together here was so satisfying. Jade Stone was my favorite thing to come out of Green Lantern's Absolute Power tie-in, so it was great to see that he has not been forgotten. Him having to team up with Aya and Shirley to appear to the rest of the Corps' reason was really great through this line of the issue. So you see there's a lot of people got different thoughts on here. A major running plot line through Green Lantern books ever since the beginning of Jerry Adams' run has been the fractured emotional spectrum. We get an explanation as to why that is happening, and I can't wait to see how it plays out for the rest of the crossover. This was so great. The more mixed response here puzzles me. And it puzzles me a little bit too. Maybe that person with the real low score hasn't been reading all the issues, so maybe they got a different take for somebody coming into the middle of the storyline. I don't know. What is your thoughts? Are you emotional over this? Let's transition into something else. Let's go with Transformers number 23 with 378 ratings, 4.7 exceptional score from the League of Comics Geeks. And I'm going to tell you, I dig it. I gave it an 8.5. Yeah, absolutely. Writers Daniel Warren Johnson, artist is George Corona. And I'm going to tell you, I like the cover right off the beginning here. We have Ultra Magnus holding up an Autobots flag. There is some awesome incentive covers and retailer exclusives. And I mean, these are awesome. But I'm not one of those people that go and buy multiple versions of it or pay extra for a different cover. If you are, there is some to explore here. Anyway, we have the last hope for the Autobots exists with the Matrix of Leadership. But will the Decepticons triumph before the answers are found? Yeah, the Decepticons are closing in. Optimus Prime seems to be fading away, possibly on his deathbed. We need the Transformers to step up. Who will take the reins and push forward as we deal with what's possibly going to happen Optimus Prime? And it's none other Ultra Magnus. Even all the issues and fear he's had in this issue, he steps up. I think that's great. This is a heart-filled issue with respect for Optimus Prime as well. I like the art in this issue too, and I really like how Optimus Prime inspires others, and we see that, how he inspires others as they're coming to him with how they feel and how they appreciate him. And we get the classic line at the end, one shall rise and one shall fall, and an epic fight. And I'm not going to reveal that because I don't want to give it away. This is a good issue, as I said, at 8.5, and I think it clearly deserves it. And as I was looking at the reviews, I usually like to share a combination. The lowest one I see here is 3.5, and says this book continues to be solid, but that's about it. I've never gone deep into the Transformers in general, so it's been a good introduction. Now, see, I think that's a key point right there. 3.5 is the lowest I can find, and it's from somebody that doesn't know much. Oh, wait, I lied. I made a mistake. I found a 3-star review. So this is so incredibly rushed, but the emotional beats hit like a semi-truck, so I still like it. So the worst score I've seen says, hey, I still like this. Everybody else is like, this is freaking fantastic. You'd have to be blind not to like it. And speaking about blind, let's jump into Daredevil, number 24, with 120 ratings, 3.3, mixed score. Yeah, writers, some nominated letterers, Clayton Cowles. Yeah, I gave the letterer this time. Pencilers, Jose Luis Soros Pinto. I probably butchered that. First of all, let me start off by saying the cover is just lame. I'm sorry, I don't like this cover. It's not interesting. Daredevil's not in an interesting pose. JR Jr. just didn't show off anything here. It looks like he's just going through the motions. There is some open order covers that are much better than this. I mean, any cover is better than this. This would not sell a book in my opinion. But we have Daredevil again, back in the red. Yep. After we had that brief, I do like it once in a while when he changes outfits. I think it's sort of cool. After a brief interlude with Bullseye, yeah, we had that deal, you know. Well, Daredevil's on the streets. Things are maybe starting to get put back together. He gets through his breakup, which is good because that chick was just not good for him. Somebody's going to get mad at me because I said that, but I like him with Elektra. That's why, okay? And they're doing some detective work, and they see something at the end. It's like, uh-oh, we know who this is. So with that said, the cover, as I said, uninspired. And I gave this book a 7.6, and I wasn't near as bad as some others are hating it, so I get that. But as I said, Daredevil's girlfriend becomes ex-girlfriend because she did not find the D to be enough. The interior art, though, is much better than what we get on the exterior here. So I think the art much, much, much better. They should have had him do the cover. Also, a question I do have is, in their investigation, and they go into the bar with no name, you know, the one with villains, Daredevil gets snuck up on and hit in the back by the Wrecker. How do you sneak up on Daredevil? I think that's a real... You know what? I'm going to drop some of my score for that, come to think of it. I'm going to go from a 7.6 to a 7.2 because there's no way he should have been able to sneak up on Daredevil. It doesn't make sense. And this is a solid issue other than that. And the Kingpin is coming back. And who doesn't like the Kingpin when it comes to Daredevil stories, right? But that said, let's go with one more issue here. One more. And that's going to be the Ultimates number 15. 666 ratings. 3.9, mostly positive score. Make it that what you will. I give the book a 7.3. The writer is Den's Camp. Artist is Von Rundle. And right off the bat, I'm going to tell you the cover is it's okay. The covers for the series have never been that great. There is some other covers that are they're okay. Anyway, the Monk, the Dragon, and the Fist. Shang-Chi Q, the Ultimates, is in this. So a different version of Shang-Chi. And we get a story about him. And evidently, the Hulk has been fearful of this person. And so the heroes are going to seek him out. And they're bringing Danny Rand, which from the prison. And we're going to, I think, see why Daniel Rand was brought into this. Because right now, this Shang-Chi Q is actually the Iron Fist, as well as a master of Kung Fu. So maybe this is going to evolve into Danny Rand becoming Iron Fist. I don't know. She-Hulk will show her rage in this issue. There's some decent art in this issue too, and some good action. But really, there's not a lot of story progression here. That's where this series tends to go a little bit of a problem with me, is they really drag the pacing on. I think so much that when it's time to wrap it up, it's going to be rushed at the end. So I could only give the book a 7.3 because of that. I wonder what your thoughts are. But let's check out some other people here. Let's check out this one. Here's a 2.5 star review. Yeah, this definitely didn't do it for me. This issue spends too much time on backstory that barely affects the ongoing events at present day time. You know what? I agree 100% there. Yes, it does set up the lore for the team that it'll tackle, but it just wastes too many pages without having too much of an effect on the overall story. And I agree with that. Well, let's look at one that gives it a little higher score. Here is a 3.5. I thought this was one of the weaker issues. Unfortunately, still good. Even with the series at its weakest, it's still good. But Dense Camp sets the bar so high, we all know what he can do. So I think that's why when something he writes isn't as good as the previous stuff, it feels worse. Okay. Let's see here if I can find something that really, wow, this seems to be a lot of consistency. Here's a 2-star. This arc has been a nothing burger so far. Everything remains the same at the end of every issue. The maker's just around the corner. But what are we still doing? We continue to add more and more members of the team, but it's barely functioning. Boy, I tend to agree. I understand that we need to build the universe and build the characters, though. So with that said, I'm looking for one that's not saying it's a weak issue. Here we go. We got a 4.5 star review. This one really runs counter to what we've been talking about. This was probably my favorite issue of the series. This issue of lore and deep exploration of the Pantheon felt almost epic and classic, traditional even. This kind of writing was a pretty big surprise to find in a book from Camp, because it was written in a way that almost showed an appreciation for the kind of writing that has come before, instead of the usual sort of contempt you come away with experiencing from anything historical or old whenever reading this version of the Ultimates. I might actually buy 2 copies of this because of how much I liked it. Okay, wait a minute. Why would you own 2 copies just because you like the story? Does anybody else do that? I don't do that. I'm not going to be rereading this so much that it falls apart. That's for sure. Epic tale of exploration of the character of Shang-Chi. Never underestimate the power of a good story. Wow. I'm not buying 2 issues, especially with the high cover prices of Marvel comic books. I'm sorry, just not happening. So this one really does have a lot of different answers. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I'm really mixed. I don't like some of the agenda in some of these Ultimate books. I do like something a little different. And it makes them still. And this also didn't give any more information about what's going on with the Wasp in the background. The story's been moving a little slow. Well, that said, everybody, I want to take the time to say thank you for everybody for watching and supporting this channel. Please continue to help out. It really does help the channel. I'm thinking about launching a new series because I haven't had much of an output of videos. And when I do product reviews, those take a long time because I put a lot of work into them. I still got the finishing part of the $10 guitar challenge that we're just waiting on it to cool down because my daughter wants to help me paint it, put it together. And so I want to do a video of that, but I'm waiting until it's not in the high 90s to do that. So with that said, I'm thinking about doing another one. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I might call it something like Tales from Never Was, Has Been Musician, something like that, where I just talk about, in generalities, some of the progress and things that I had through my musical career and how it impacted my daily job and everything else that stemmed from that. I don't know, something like a blog, just so you get to know me a little bit and I can know you a little bit better too and continue to build the community. Well, thank you everybody for your time, and until next time, keep it frugal. And by the way, thank all these people because they're awesome. Yeah, all the people that supported the channel. You know who you are. Thank you, everybody.